Deep inside an unexplored cave, a diver unexpectedly came across a body floating motionless in the water. Even more chilling, he could make out the faint outline of another human-shaped figure lying not far away. But just as the diver slowly approached to get a closer look, the seemingly lifeless body suddenly lunged toward him. Terror instantly swept through his entire body. Frozen in fear, he was unable to move. This is the story of the Aiguez Cave diving incident in Spain. Aiguez Cave is located off the coast of Cap de Norfeu in the autonomous region of Catalonia, Spain. Its entrance lies hidden beneath 8 to 10 meters of water, concealed by the crystal blue sea. The first 45 meters of the cave consist of a relatively gentle passage that has been officially surveyed and opened to the public. The water in this section is exceptionally clear, providing excellent visibility. Between depths of 20 and 30 meters, large numbers of lobsters inhabit the cave, earning it the nickname Lobster Cave among local divers and making it a popular recreational diving destination. However, it is important to understand that everything beyond the 45-meter mark remains unsurveyed. No official maps exist, and no one had ever fully explored that section of the cave. It was a dangerous zone shrouded in darkness and uncertainty, hiding risks that could not be predicted. On July 19, 2014, the weather along the coast was ideal for diving. The skies were clear, the sea was calm, and there was almost no wind or wave activity. At 10 a.m., Ricard Lopez, Dionisio Martinez, and Javier Montaner completed a full inspection of their diving equipment and entered the water. Another member of their group remained on the boat to provide backup support and respond to any emergencies that might arise. But a fatal problem had already been set in motion. None of the three divers possessed cave diving certification. Their only qualifications were basic open water diving licenses. In practical terms, this was like someone who had just learned the fundamentals of swimming deciding to explore deep waters. Their decision violated one of the most basic principles of diving safety and laid the groundwork for the tragedy that followed. At the start of the dive, the three men successfully reached the officially designated tourist section of Aiguez Cave. The passage was wide and gentle, with limestone walls covered in patterns sculpted by centuries of seawater erosion. Visibility was excellent, and the divers moved comfortably along the rock walls until they reached a depth of 30 meters. This point marked the official boundary of the recreational diving zone. 12 meters farther ahead stood a sharp right-angle turn at a depth of 42 meters. Beyond that turn lay an unexplored realm with no safety guidance and no guarantees of survival. At this point, Javier used standard underwater hand signals to clearly tell Ricard and Dionisio that he would not continue deeper. He informed them that he would wait for 20 minutes in the safe zone at 30 meters. If they had not returned by then, he would leave according to the plan and ensure his own safety. Ricard and Dionisio appeared completely confident. After signaling OK, they continued forward, passed through the 42-meter turn, and entered the forbidden section of the cave. The moment they began swimming through the unexplored area, their movements stirred up thick layers of sediment that had rested undisturbed on the cave floor for years. Within seconds, the crystal-clear water turned completely cloudy. Visibility dropped to zero. They could no longer see the cave walls, nor could they see each other. The sudden loss of visibility shattered their composure. Panic quickly took over. Their breathing became rapid and uncontrolled, causing their air supply to be consumed at an alarming rate. At the same time, the cave passage narrowed dramatically. What had once been several meters wide shrank to less than 1 meter. At its narrowest point, it measured only 80 centimeters across, barely enough for a single diver to squeeze through sideways. Disoriented and terrified, the two men began moving aimlessly, completely losing their sense of direction. Under normal circumstances, a guideline would have been their lifeline. One of the most important rules of cave diving is to install a guideline before entering, creating a marked route back to safety. But Ricard and Dionisio had done no such thing. In fact, they had no awareness of this fundamental safety practice. As a result, they became hopelessly lost in the unexplored section of the cave. Meanwhile, Javier waited in the 30-meter safety zone. Soon, the agreed 20-minute deadline passed. Neither diver returned. Instead, Javier noticed large clouds of sediment spreading through the water nearby. Drawing on years of diving experience, he immediately realized that the two men were probably in serious trouble. However, Javier also understood that he lacked cave diving rescue qualifications and specialized rescue equipment. Entering the unexplored section himself would likely result in 3 victims instead of 2. After agonizing over the decision, he followed the emergency plan and returned to the surface. Once back on the boat, he immediately called emergency services. The Spanish Civil Guard quickly transferred the case to the specialized underwater rescue unit known as the Aiguez Underwater Activities Group. While rescue teams rushed to the scene and prepared for the operation, Ricard and Dionisio were descending into complete despair deep within the cave. Surrounded by darkness, they could only swim blindly, repeatedly crashing into the sharp limestone walls. Their wetsuits were torn in multiple places. Cold seawater soaked their wounds, increasing their pain and exhaustion. Desperate to survive, they eventually forced themselves through the extremely narrow 80-centimeter rock passage. Just when they believed death was imminent, they discovered something unexpected. Beyond the narrow tunnel lay a large underground chamber. Even more remarkably, there was an air pocket above the water. Using the last of their strength, the two men surfaced into the chamber, removed their masks, and breathed deeply. To them, it felt like a miracle. They believed they had found refuge. Later measurements revealed that the chamber was 7.2 meters long, 4.1 meters wide, and approximately 1.2 meters high, containing about 35 cubic meters of air. Based on normal breathing rates, the chamber contained enough oxygen to support 2 adults for more than 24 hours. The divers believed they were safe. They even used an underwater camera to take photographs of themselves, documenting what they thought was a lucky escape. But they overlooked the chamber's deadliest danger. It was a completely sealed environment. No fresh air could enter. No air could circulate. With every breath they took, oxygen levels decreased while carbon dioxide levels increased. In such an enclosed space, carbon dioxide buildup becomes deadly long before oxygen is fully depleted. As the hours passed, the atmosphere inside the chamber steadily worsened. Ricard, who was 63 years old, was physically weaker than his companion. The extreme panic he had experienced while navigating the narrow passage continued even after reaching the chamber. His heightened stress accelerated the buildup of carbon dioxide in his body. Approximately 7 hours after entering the chamber, carbon dioxide concentrations inside reached a lethal threshold of around 7%. Ricard suddenly experienced severe distress before losing consciousness. His body slowly sank beneath the water. Dionisio immediately reacted, pulling him back to the surface. But shortly afterward, Ricard sank again. This time, even faster. Dionisio struggled once more to drag him back up. However, the freezing water continued draining their strength. Ricard, together with his full diving equipment, weighed more than 80 kilograms. Dionisio simply did not have the physical strength to keep him afloat indefinitely. His rescue attempts became increasingly difficult. At the same time, the GES rescue team arrived at the scene. After preparing their equipment and finalizing a rescue plan, they entered Aiguez Cave. Their first priority was to install safety guidelines through the completely clouded water. This was essential for both navigation and rescuer safety. The divers advanced slowly along the cave walls, laying guideline after guideline. But when they reached the 42-meter turn, they discovered that the sediment was still fully suspended in the water. Visibility remained nearly zero. They could not determine where the passage led, nor could they locate the missing divers. To avoid creating additional casualties, the first rescue team was forced to abort the operation and return to the surface. The initial search effort ended in failure. The rescue mission stalled. Early the next morning, after a night of sediment settling, visibility inside the cave improved to approximately 6 meters. Conditions were finally suitable for another search. By then, professional cave diving rescuers had arrived, and support personnel were standing by on shore. At 8 a.m., the research team re-entered the cave and followed the guidelines installed the previous day. Visibility had improved significantly, allowing rescuers to clearly see the passage and cave walls. Progress was much faster. About an hour later, the team passed through the narrow crack and reached the underground lake at the end of the cave. There, they discovered the sealed air chamber. Inside, they found Dionisio curled up against the rock wall. They also found Ricard's body floating in the water. By this point, Dionisio had been trapped inside the sealed chamber for more than 24 hours. Prolonged exposure to cold water had caused severe hypothermia, while carbon dioxide poisoning had led to hypercapnia, confusion, and intense hallucinations. His mental state was severely impaired. When rescuers approached him, he reacted aggressively. He refused to leave the chamber and even attempted to attack the rescuers. His behavior created a new obstacle to the rescue effort. Fearing that forcing him out might cause him to fall into the icy water and create an even greater emergency, rescuers suspended their extraction attempt and reported the situation to the command center. The command center urgently contacted a close friend of Dionisio's, a trusted diver with professional qualifications, and asked him to assist. The friend descended into the chamber and spoke with Dionisio. After a lengthy period of reassurance and persuasion, Dionisio gradually calmed down and regained partial awareness. Eventually, he agreed to cooperate with rescuers. At 3:42 p.m. that afternoon, Dionisio was successfully brought to the surface and rushed for emergency medical treatment. One day later, rescuers recovered Ricard's body. The cave diving rescue operation ultimately ended in tragedy. The official investigation later concluded that Ricard's direct cause of death was acute hypercapnia and carbon dioxide poisoning. Other potential causes, including drowning and decompression sickness, were ruled out. Authorities also addressed rumors accusing Dionisio of failing to help his friend friend. Data recorded by his dive computer confirmed that Dionisio had attempted to rescue Ricard twice. Furthermore, the size of the air chamber meant there was no evidence that the two men were competing for air. Investigators found no evidence whatsoever that Dionisio had harmed his companion. The loss of his friend left Dionisio devastated. In that desperate, sealed chamber, he had done everything he could to save Ricard. Despite his efforts, he was unable to prevent his friend's death.